Okay, now we're recording. Okay, this is what I hate. Okay, we're gonna change the transmission in this car. And okay, there's the transmission right down there. And we're gonna get this transmission and change it. Okay, first of all, we're gonna take this off. Okay, this is what I hate. Okay, people make videos and they do this. So here's how you're supposed to start. This is a 2015 Ford Escape. We're going to change the transmission in this 2015 Ford Escape. You can see what it is now. And you see what we're doing. So first, we're going to get the airbox out. And anybody that's watching this video that's about to change the transmission, they already know how to put the screwdriver in the hose clamp and all those things. So I'm just going to say, okay, we're going to take this intake tube off, this airbox out, the battery out, and all of this stuff up here, this tube here, and anything that's in the way of the top of the transmission we're going to take out. And then we'll resume the video at that point. I'm going to have my beautiful daughter Mercedes hold the camera for me. And so we'll get back to the video at that point. Okay, I decided to get this off. This whole thing right here. Because it's, you know, sticking halfway out over the engine, so they're going. Okay, so I'm going to get these two little things off right here. Go ahead and bring it up. I'm going to get the wipers off and then get this thing out. So pop those things off like this. They just pop right off. Then we'll get these nuts off and pry the wipers off, or tap on it, or whatever we have to do to get them off. And then this will come off. And the same thing over here. Let's get a screwdriver in there, pop that up, and get that nut off. And then we will, there's a 10mm here, and we're going to find all the points where it's fastening and just get this off. I have never done this job before, so I'm learning it as well. I'm making this video because there wasn't one. So anyway, yeah, I'll get this off and then we'll restart it and I'll show you where all the bolts were. So go ahead and cut it. Is it going? Mm-hmm. Okay, so to get this wiper off, we took this little tiny puller here. We only used 2 of the legs. I put it on there and then I push it that way and it pops it off. So that one came off, and I'm going to do the same thing over there. So that's one way you can do that. So go ahead and cut it. Okay, so I put it on like this. I'm only using 2 of the legs because I can't get it centered with all 3 legs on there because this plastic is coming too close right here, and I can't get the legs, all 3 legs centered on there to get this thing in the center. So I just put 2 of the legs on there, and I crank this down until it's starting to get tight on there, and then I just pushed it over to the side like this, and it gave me some leverage to like that, and just popped it right up. So that's how that was done. Okay, cut it. Okay, I wanted to show you these little clips right here. These things right here. They're little metal clips. They go right here, and they hold this thing to that. This plastic hard thing underneath here is bolted on separately. So you got to get this. Once you get this up, then there will be some bolts in there that you can see to get this off. So I just wanted to turn the camera on for a minute and point it right over here and show you these little clips. I'm just getting a screwdriver. I got this screwdriver that's kind of bent on the end. I use it for clips and things. And you just poke it in the edge and pull the clip off like that. And I'm just getting all these clips off. And then I'll pull this up so you can go ahead and cut. Okay, so I got all the clips off of these little places here, all the way along there, and all the way over here. And this thing popped out, and these little poppers right here, they go in these little holes right here. You get all this? Mm-hmm. And you just kind of got to get them and just pop them out, kind of like popping a door panel off. And that came off. And under there, we have, right over here. This is the 10mm that I could see before, and then they're out. And then we got this one. And that might be all. Let's see. Nope. We got this one, looks like a 14. 13 or a 14 right there. And this 10, and let's look at that other side. And 10 here. And you know what? Never mind, this one doesn't have to come out. That bigger one doesn't have to come out to get this off. That's a strut bolt, and this is separate. So these 10s are coming out, and this thing might just come out after that. So if we're running anything else, we'll start it up again. Okay, so we got all this stuff off. That big panel right there, those 2 bolts were all it was, and it just slid right out easy, and it's off. And then I got the battery bracket off, the battery out. Took the airbox out, it just came right out pretty easy. It's, you know, sticks right in here and goes to this tube. But these tie downs are really handy. I take these and I hold things out of the way with these. These tubes are still connected, so when I get done I'll just put it back where it was and the tubes will still be there, and I won't have to worry about which tube went to what. And this, you know, it's the only one, so I know where it goes. And this thing is sitting here still kind of in the way, but I'll figure out some way to move this. This mount right here, and let me show you this plate right here. This was underneath the battery, and it was right like this. It was like this. Had these 4, it's on these 4 studs, 2 right here and 2 right here. Back here. With these nuts, they held it on. And I got these nuts off. And the next thing I wanted to do was get this thing out. But this mount, I started taking this mount bolt out and I can see the transmission dropping, so I'm going to have to support the transmission. This mount is carrying the weight on this side of the whole thing. So we're going to have to get all the rest of this stuff off and get all the top work done, all the transmission bolts out on the top. And might have to take some of these hoses, maybe or maybe not. But this thing's got to wait till you get the top work done and then get underneath. We're going to raise it up and get underneath and support it. Once we support it, then we can get this off, and then we'll get ready to drop it out. It's going to come out the bottom. There's a big gaping opening, big hole down there. We can get it out the bottom. It looks like, from what I can tell so far, it's going to come out the bottom pretty easy. So that's where we're at, and we're going to call it a night and resume the video tomorrow. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Okay, we're back again, and this time I'm alone, but I'll show you what I'm going to do next. We're taking this transmission out, and we have the shift linkage. It's right there. I'm going to get that nut off right there, and we have a 8mm right there. The shift linkage there, and the 8mm back here, holding that on. And looks like with those 2, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to get that nut off. I'm just going to pop that off right there. I'm going to pop that rod off that pin there, and then get that 8mm out, and then just kind of peel it back this way and tie it out of the way somehow. Then we have these 2 hoses right here. Let's see what we got. Just to show you where we're at here. Okay, here's our vehicle. It's a 2015 Ford Escape. And there's our air intake or throttle body right there, just for reference. And come down here, shift linkage, and back here to that cooler thingy. And there's the 2 hoses right there. And there's 3 actually. There's 2 metal ones. One back there, and these are 8mm bolts holding them on. There's one right there and one here. And this is the coolant hose, and Ford's running coolant into the transmission to help cool it, I guess, instead of running lines up to the radiator. Ford has some weird coolant hose configurations that I've seen on some of their stuff, but they got this, and it goes back into the heater core back there, and they got something teeing off of there, one of the heater hoses back here into the upper radiator hose, I guess. But that's on a tangent. Anyway, after I get that linkage off and those hoses off, there's 3 metal hoses. Yeah, 3 metal ones. Now I'm just going to take a hose clamp way down in there. See, way down in there? Right in the middle of the screen there. There's that one. I'm going to get that clamp off. And those 3 metal hoses will be off, and this one here. Anyway, then I'll get to, looks like we got to take that one off. There's your shift linkage again for reference, and there's the lighting's not very good, but there's a coolant hose right there. Is that a coolant hose? Looks like one. It's a weird thing, it's got a clamp on it. Anyway, I don't know what it is, but it's got to come off. Maybe not. Let's see. Here's my new transmission. And guess what? That doesn't have to come off. That's a vent. That's a vent right there, so that doesn't have to come off. So I'll get these 4 things off. The rubber hose here, and there's a rubber hose here, and there's 2 metal ones that go in these 2. Those will come off. The shift linkage, the 8mm bolt. Yeah, what in the world? Let's see. Is this not the same? Okay, we have that thing there. No, it is the same. I'm just disoriented because that one's out of the car. So we have that mount thing there that doesn't have to come off because the one on the other transmission is still on. And the shift linkage bracket isn't on that one. I'm going to use the same shift linkage bracket. So the shift linkage bracket bolts to these. Looks like here. And the 8mm bolt goes into the bracket, so you don't see that hole on this new transmission. Anyway, yeah, that's the new one. It's not brand new, it's a used one. It's 33,000 miles on it. But this will be, it's nice to have this sitting here oriented the same as that one in there, because I can see what all I have on this one, what all I'm going to have to use off the other one, and so on. So I'm going to get those things off and we'll get back to you. So we're back, and I got the shift linkage off, and I just kind of pulled it up here. It's sitting right here, tucked in behind that. Ground. Let's see, here's the shift linkage right here. It's behind the ground cable in this jacketed thing here. I just kind of tucked it back up in there, and here's the bracket that was holding it on. And the cable's kind of leading down from there. And we got those 4 things off. They're all disconnected. This one's still sitting there, but it's off. Yeah, right there. And next is going to be the transmission bolts. Maybe like some coolant hoses in the way. And my plan right now is to try to just kind of move those and get to the bolts and get all the top bolts out. And I'm going to have to get the starter off. And the starter is right below the intake, right down there. That silver thing there, that's the solenoid. Let's see, right there. That's the solenoid, and the starter is directly underneath it, kind of hooked to it. And I'm going to get that off. There's a bolt right down. I guess I can see it. I can't see it on the camera very good, but it's right in the middle of your screen. Little kind of a light reflecting there, right smack in the middle. That's the bolt I'm talking about. It's a stud with a nut on it. And I'll get that off, and getting that starter off will give me room to do the flywheel bolts, the torque converter bolts. It'll open that gap up, and then I can turn it and take one of them off and turn it some more, and the other one, and so on, until I get the flywheel off the torque converter. And so that's next. I think I have everything disconnected from the top, and set this mount here. That'll be last. So I'm going to try to get these top transmission bolts out and get that starter off, and we will continue from there. Okay, I guess, yeah, okay, now it's recording. Okay, so I wanted to show you the starter. And by the way, here's the reason I'm doing this transmission. Let's see if we can get a good shot of that right there. This that black thing right there, that's all of the plastic stuff that was in the transmission, and it has ran down and formed itself into the shape of the pan. I've got the pan pulled off, and that's everything in there is just totally fried. Just completely fried. I don't even know how it did it. But anyway, it's coming out or the transmission's coming off. So anyway, here's the starter right up there, and that's the bottom bolt is right here. Let's see. Trying to get this video so you can tell what I'm doing. Okay, this bolt right there is the bottom bolt to the starter. I'm taking it off from down here. I'm going to get those wires, that wire holder, or that wire clip thing, off of that nut, and then, or off of that stud, and then get the small nut off, and this little metal thing, this little metal bracket thing that holds other wires, it'll come off. And then that bigger thing, that bigger nut looking thing, it's actually part of the stud. It'll be the bottom bolt to the starter. It'll come out, and then I'll have to figure out how to get those wires off the back of the solenoid, and that'll be doable somehow or other. And the starter will come out, and then I can have that hole open right there, where that rubber seal is right there, to get in there and do the flywheel or the torque converter bolts. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that on the starter, and we'll get back to you as soon as that's out. So here's our next update. I did not have to get the wires off the starter. I was able to move it. I just took the two big bolts out to hold it on and moved it back toward the engine away from the transmission, and there's plenty of room to access the opening there. And also I'm going to have to get this bar. We have our lower control arm right here, and this bar right here, there's bracket bolts on with these two 10mm bolts right here, and then there's two more right here that I'm gonna get this, take these fasteners out here and get this panel off right down here. There's a couple more screws where it fastens to the splash guard over there. I'm gonna get that out and get to the other side of these, and they're also 10mm heads, and I'll get those two bolts out, and this will come off. Then I'm gonna go ahead and get the axles out. I'll have to get that, maybe undo the ball joint or whatever it is, and that'll allow me to get the axle out. Then I'll pull the axles out. There's one on each side here, and on this one I'll probably get this mounting bracket off and just move it back a little bit. This one I'm just gonna have to move it back a little bit because there's nothing above it on the transmission that's gonna stop it from dropping down. This one's probably gonna have to come out all the way. Anyway, I'll get back to you after I do those things. Okay, one more update here. I'll just show you what I've done. I pulled the axles out. Once I got the axles popped out of the transmission, they were just out, so I didn't just move them, I just pulled them both out. Got them sitting right here and one on that side. And all I did was pull the ball joint off. One bolt going sideways through the ball joint, and pulled it off, popped the ball joints out. I left the tie rod ends on there, and just having the ball joint out gave me enough movement here to get the axle out, so that went pretty good. This side has a long axle, looks like this, and there's a carrier bearing thing that kind of holds it right there, and it's right here, and I just pulled it out, and once that axle was popped out of here, then it just was out, so I just set it on the thing, and there's nothing else holding it. So that's out. All the transmission bolts are out. I'm starting to split it apart right here, and I don't want to use that gap that the starter motor uncovered to get those flywheel bolts out, because I'm gonna have to do it from on top, and it's gonna be reaching way down in there. So I'm gonna try to just slide the torque converter off the shaft far enough. There's not enough room over here to slide it clear off the torque converter, so I'm gonna slide it back far enough off the torque converter shaft so that I have a gap there big enough to get a wrench in there, and try to get the flywheel bolts out, or the torque converter bolts out. That way, I've already got this mount bolt pulled, and it's just kind of sitting there. The torque converter shaft and that top mount are holding it up here. So I'll get some support under this transmission, take the weight off of it, and then I'll be able to nudge it back till I can get to those torque converter bolts. And last of all, I'll get up on top and get that mount bolt out up there, and then just drop it out. And then we'll put our new baby in there. So I will give you an update when I have those things done. So there's one thing I forgot to show you because I forgot to see it and notice it, and it's something I forgot to disconnect from the top of that transmission. So I'm going to set you right up on top of this post right here while I wing myself up there, and then I'll pick the camera up and show you what that is. Okay, here we go. Gloves on. Oh yeah. Okay. Gloves back off so I can handle the camera. And here's our engine compartment again. There's our engine. There's where the battery was and stuff, and there's that top mount. And right over here in front of that, right down here, there's a tube that comes out, and there's an 8mm. Hang on a second, let's see if I can show you this right. Okay, there's an 8mm bolt right there, and this little thing in this tube comes out right there. So I got to get that off, and then I think I'll have everything off. I also forgot to unplug that. There's a sensor right down there. I don't know if you can see that. That's right. Anyway, I'll show you on the new one. Get back down off of here. Let's see. I guess I dropped my gloves anyway. Okay, here we go. Back on the floor. It goes right in here, and I'm guessing it threads in there because it was an electrical plug that was plugged on that I just unplugged. And then when I get that one out, I'm gonna thread that sensor out and thread it in right here. So those two things right here is where that hose comes off, and there's where that thing that I unplugged. Those I forgot to mention earlier because I just didn't think about it, didn't think of them. So I'll see you when I get back. Okay, so I just got to this next step here and wanted to show you. I did get the transmission split apart pretty good, and I got the torque converter nuts off. I don't know if you can see that bolt sticking out in there. I actually can't see it on the camera, but it's a small screen. Maybe you can see it on the computer as you watch the video. But I got all four of those torque converter nuts off just by putting the wrench up in this gap right here. And then I had a wrench on the crank to hold the. I had a wrench on the crank there, and that bolt in the middle there to hold the engine from turning while I loosened those nuts off of that. And of course, I've got them threaded onto here so I don't lose them, because they're kind of a hard nut to find. They're a lock nut with a fine thread, and they're on here. And I've also gone ahead and put all my bolts in the holes. I took them out of the original transmission and put them in the place in this transmission where they go, so that I don't have to sort through my bolts and find which one went to where afterward. So now that top mount is still connected up there, and I'm going to get up there and take it off now. But I just wanted to note that I was able to move this apart. I did have to get these bolts out of this mount on the back. There's a bolt here, here, and this one right here that's still sitting there, but this thing is able to wiggle on it. It's loose. It allowed the transmission to move back and forth a little bit, and this mount was holding it from getting that gap any bigger. So that's what I did there. And now I have this scissor jack under here. The transmission jack wasn't quite high enough, and this thing, you can handle it by hand. It's pretty heavy. You don't really want to mess with it too much without a helper, but I think we're gonna survive pretty good. I'll just kind of guide it down onto this Anyway, I'll figure out how to do it. I'll do it. So I'm gonna get up there and get that top mount undone, and then it should be able to drop out. I believe I have enough space over there on that side to move it off of those, to move the bolts out from inside the flywheel holes. Anyway, I will give another update at the next step. So I got the transmission out, and here's the big gaping hole where it used to be. There's the flywheel and stuff. The bolts just come out of that, and it came down through this hole. It wasn't too hard. I just had to wiggle it a little bit and move it back and forth, and it came down. And it's right here. And I found out that I didn't have to even take these two things off right here, this one and this one, because those tubes, they both go right around and hook back to the transmission again. This one is still on there. If I'd have been more attentive, I would have said, hey, we got to take that off too, but didn't have to take any of them off. This goes around here and it's right there, and I could have just left it on there. I'm going to pull these tubes off and put them on the new one, but I didn't have to take them off to get the transmission out. But I have a question, and hopefully somebody watching this will be able to help me. This transmission got really, really hot. Look at right down here. These are all the solenoid valves and things, and this is some plastic stuff. And it just melted down here, and it's in the shape of the pan down here by the bottom. I guess it's kind of hard to see that in this light, but maybe I can pick this up a little bit. Yeah, see? Let's see if that's any better. Yeah, it just kind of molded itself to the shape of the pan down there. It just all ran down there. And I didn't see any evidence of fire. There wasn't any soot on anything. We got some fluid residue running down, right down there. And this vent right here got really hot. And this plastic bushing that seals this tube in here, it's kind of melted there. You see right around there, that's kind of melted. You pop it out and you see that got really hot. And this one, this end of this short tube here, down here, got really hot. That's that plastic. It actually started to run down right there. And I don't know how a transmission could get this hot. And the way I even knew something was wrong is because it had a range sensor code. I bought it like this from Copart, and they actually said run and drive on the listing, and that's why I bought it. And anyway, it's a long story, but anyway, it's been super, super hot. And maybe somebody knows how any transmission could ever even get this hot. And maybe, maybe there was some fire, I don't know. Anyway, the fluid that came out of there was just black, blacker than black, and it smelled like barbecue transmission fluid, I mean. Anyway, if anybody knows, I'm going to go ahead and start putting this thing back in, and it's going to be a lot the reverse of taking it out. If I run into anything that I think needs to be included, I will let you know. And if anybody has any idea what could have happened to this thing, if they've seen something like this before, or have any ideas, if they towed the car for a lot of miles without taking the driveline out, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, if anybody knows about that, just let me know. Thank you.